Chapter 21. How to avoid playing with strange fire. Recognizing Counterfeit Revival, Part 1. And Nadab and Abihu died when they offered strange fire before the Lord. Numbers 26:61. While driving through a little country town in the Ozark Mountains, I saw a sign with big, bold letters, "Revival, happening now." Feeling impressed to check it out, I turned off the road into a church parking lot and joined a group heading into the church. Now, I should have known from the moment I walked through the door that this was not going to be any ordinary revival service, if revival services can ever be ordinary. The music was very, very loud, and I almost needed to cover my ears as the praise leader egged the crowd on, singing, rather screaming, into the microphone. Apparently not satisfied with the praise session, the pastor entered the pulpit and yelled at the people that if they truly believed in a great God, they needed to act like it and go crazy for him. As a result, everyone started waving their arms and dancing while they sang, and some were even jumping up and down and off the stage. The uproar in the room increased until it was difficult to even understand the words of the songs they were singing. However, I did catch one very telling line of lyrics. "Heaven is real, death is a lie. Heaven is real, death is a lie." To me that sounded very familiar, like something a serpent told Eve about 6,000 years ago, Genesis 3:4. It was all I could do to resist getting up and leaving, but I determined to stay a bit longer to see what would happen next. Soon the preacher, a traveling revivalist, began a very compelling, lengthy appeal for offerings to support his traveling ministry. Concluding this, he proceeded to preach, or rather yell, about our need for a deeper walk with God. This walk, he explained, would be evidenced by a new supernatural experience. I began taking notes as fast as I could. Now the world frowns at us because of our focus on the experience, he confided, but that's where God meets us. I didn't recall a Bible verse supporting that, but I continued to listen intently. He elaborated on that and then transitioned to the altar. "Whoever controls the altar controls the outcome," he shouted. How true, I thought, but there is more than one altar. The devil has an altar too. To which altar are we referring? The preacher continued, "Do you know why it's so important that we control the altar? It's because if we do, the whole state of Arkansas will be shaken. That's what happens when the altar gets hot. Folks, it's time we come forward and take control of the altar." He was speaking at a higher and higher pitch and began to sweat. People raised their hands in agreement, and behind me, I heard someone speaking in tongues. "People, are you hungry for Jesus or aren't you? We've got to stop talking about the fire and experience the fire. Forget about those you're sitting beside. Forget about protocol. If you want a supernatural experience, if you want to see miracles, you've got to get up and take control of the altar." I guess this was his way of making an altar call, because people began jumping out of their seats and running to the front with their arms in the air. Soon it was difficult to hear the preacher with all the babbling in tongues, weeping and yelling in the room. Despite the preacher's earnest appeal, there were still some of us in the congregation who were unmoved. At this, he began to sweat even more as his voice took on a greater intensity and volume. "I don't know what more to say," he cried in great consternation, seeming to look right at me. "Do you want the fire or don't you?" At this point, afraid he might come down, lay hands on me and try to force me to experience the fire, I decided it was time to leave. Driving home, my mind kept replaying the events of the revival service. On one hand, I wish I were a mouse in the corner to see how it all ended. On the other hand, it's probably best I didn't. It was getting a bit crazy. There was a fire going on in that church, all right, but it was a strange fire.